Fíjense que el otro día en Instagram, mi amigo y colaborador de este programa, Marc Katz, que es considerado como el mejor entrenador para mujeres que están buscando el amor, inteligentes, fuertes, capaces, exitosas, en Estados Unidos, ahora las ayuda a nivel mundial. Hay muchas cuentavientes que ya han leído sus libros, Why You're Still Single, Believe in Love, Why He Disappeared. Son parte del blog que Evan tiene, en donde hay más de 30 millones de lectoras. 12,000 mujeres ya se han graduado de Love You, que es un curso por video, a distancia, de 6 meses, en que les ayuda a entender a los hombres y encontrar, pues, el amor que ustedes estén buscando. Y que no crean que porque son unas mujeres súper capaces, asustan a los hombres. Bueno, Evan, el otro día puso en su Instagram, porque yo lo sigo en Instagram y deberían de seguirlo, es @EvanMarcKatz. Y el Mark es con C, el Katz es con K y con Z. Puso los tipos de hombre que las mujeres deberíamos de evitar. Y dije, es que Evan tiene que venir a comentar todo esto. So I was surfing Instagram, and obviously I'm always spying on you, my friend. And I saw that you put a post that said, the type of men you should stay away from. So obviously we wanted you to say this on the air. So all the women out there who are looking for true love understand when they have to buy a pair of sneakers and run, baby, run! How are you, my friend?
So I've been doing this for 20 years. This is the first thing I've ever done that went viral.
That went viral. It's que it was fantastic.
This was seen by 300,000 people on TikTok in about 70 hours.
Uh-huh.
And it's 1 minute. And we're going to talk about it for an hour today because it's so very important. The biggest problem that women tend to make in dating is that they don't pay attention to the red flags at the beginning.
Yeah.
And they're always there in the end. And under the guise of attraction, we could forgive just about anything.
Yeah.
So if we restrict our dating pool by avoiding a certain kind of man over and over again, we'll be less likely to pay the price for that 1 year, 2 years, 20 years down the road.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Dice, oigan, es la primera vez que un post mío se hace viral. Lo vieron más de 300,000 personas. Fue un trancazo en TikTok. Y básicamente, lo que hoy quiero explicarles a todas, en los siguientes 40 minutos, es lo que hacen muy mal las mujeres, que es no poner atención a las alertas rojas que están desde el día 1 y están hasta el último día también. Y ese es el gran problema. Entonces, para que ustedes no estén batallando, ahí les viene Evan con las cosas que tienen que poner atención y con el tipo de hombre con el cual no deberían de salir. Ok, type of guy number 1.
How long do you got, Martha?
Well, we got 10 minutes to the first commercial break, and then we got 22 minutes for the second one. But I got a lifetime, baby. I got a lifetime.
So it's one of those things where I didn't have it written down. I just started talking. But
Yeah.
let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
If a guy is separated, right? He and his wife are broken up. They are divorcing, probably, maybe. Or maybe they are on the path to divorce, but they're not yet divorced.
Agree.
This would seem to be a guy objectively that you should stay away from.
Okay.
And it doesn't mean, and here's the other part about this. A lot of the men we're talking about aren't necessarily bad people. They're just bad bets if you want to have a happy, healthy marriage in the next few years.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're like irredeemable. It means that if you're trying to place a bet on, can I see myself married to this guy in 2.5 years? A guy who's still married is probably not a good bet.
Yeah, exactly. Dice, a ver, lo primero que les voy a decir es, eviten hombres que recientemente se separaron, que están separados con la mujer, que están en el proceso de ver si se divorcian o no, o que están en el proceso de divorciarse, Porque no estamos diciendo que estos hombres no sean buenos candidatos o no tengan remedio. Simplemente estamos diciendo que si ustedes quieren una relación formal, comprometida, armoniosa, libre de broncas, va a ser muy difícil que suceda con este hombre. Y sobre todo, si ustedes quieren y se ven casadas en los siguientes par de años, pues con un hombre que está separado y que todavía no ha pasado por el proceso de divorcio, 100% va a ser muy difícil. I totally agree with you. It's very few the cases where you can pull that one off. And usually you go at the beginning through a very difficult phase of being part of the divorce, being part of the lawsuits, being part of the back and forth with the ex. It's very, very trying for a new relationship. Don't you agree?
Right. I mean, again, all of these things, we could have personal sympathy for the men who are in these predicaments and the women who choose them, but we have to almost remove emotions from it. We get very attached to the idea of maybe I can make this work. And in my belief, you shouldn't have to work so hard to make things work.
Exactly.
If there are these big structural obstacles in the way of your success, I can almost guarantee you there's a guy who is not married that you can date.
Claro, es que le digo que hay muy pocos casos en donde esto funciona, porque seguramente si estás en una relación con un hombre separado, vas a pasar por el proceso horrendo de todo su divorcio, las demandas, los pleitos de ida y vuelta con la ex. Entonces es muy difícil tener una relación tranquila y con paz en un principio. Y dice Evan, pues es que sí, porque al final las relaciones suponen no costar tanto trabajo. Y si va a ser un batallar, pues qué cansancio, ¿no? A veces sale, pero la gran mayoría de los casos no. Okay, type of guy number 2.
Let's just take this one to the next level.
Okay.
Let's say that a recently separated guy gets divorced. All right. So he just signed the papers and now he is ready to date. His marriage was dead for 5 years before that. And now he's ready to date. And he has a big space in his life where his wife used to be. And he has a lot of love to give. And he is very interested in you. You should also stay away from him. Once again, because he isn't a good man or doesn't have the capacity to love you. It's that people tend to overestimate their capacity to be in another relationship. That's why they call them rebound relationships. So chances are you're going to be the first rebound relationship. And the guy who just got divorced probably doesn't want to get married anytime soon either.
Exactly.
If you are looking for marriage, you don't have to look for marriage, but if you're looking for that, one of the last guys who's going to want to get married is the guy who just got divorced.
Okay, totally agree. And sometimes it does come out. And sometimes it does not.
There's exceptions to all these rules.
There's exceptions to all these rules.
Everybody's trying to play for the exception.
Exactly. Dice, a ver, número 2. Vamos a subirle un nivel. El hombre que se acaba de divorciar. Los seres humanos tendemos a sobreestimar la capacidad que tenemos de estar en una relación. Y cuando estás recién divorciado, tu primera relación normalmente pues es el clavo que saca otro clavo, es tu tabla de salvavidas y casi nunca acabas con tu tabla de salvavidas. Entonces, si se vale no querer casarse, pero si tú eres una mujer que quiere tener una relación formal, comprometida y que eventualmente se quiere casar, pues las probabilidades de que un hombre que se acaba de divorciar se quiera volver a casar pronto son bastante pequeñas. Entonces, claro que hay excepciones y claro que hay casos que han funcionado, pero tus probabilidades son muy bajas con un hombre que se acaba de divorciar. Number 3. I love number 3 because I don't even know how you find out if this guy has number 3 or doesn't. I can't hear you.
Help me out with number 3 because I don't have numbers in my head.
Okay, go.
I know the answers, but I don't know the numbers.
Okay. The numbers is men who don't know what they're looking for. Los hombres que no saben lo que están buscando.
Right.
O lo que quieren.
This is an easy one. And we may have talked about this before since you and I have such a relationship and I forget all the things I say here. But there's a saying that we have in Love You. Believe the negatives, ignore the positives.
Okay.
All right. The positives is how you feel, how attractive he is, how much fun you're having, how connected you are. The negatives are all the things that he tells you that you try to filter out. Number one, I don't really know what I'm looking for.
Ay, Dios mío.
I don't know if I ever want to get married. I don't know if I ever want to have kids. The person who doesn't know what he's looking for, there's a 50% chance that 2 years later, when you're hoping that he's going to step up and propose to you, he's going to say, I told you I didn't know what I was looking for.
Exactly. We don't want to take that risk. We don't
That's
want to
the
take
point.
that chance.
It's not that it can't happen. Why take the risk with a guy who tells you at the beginning, this story might have a very unhappy ending?
Of course. A ver, dice que él siempre dice algo en su curso, por eso les digo que lo tienen que tomar. Cuando uno está en una relación, busca los negativos e ignora los positivos, porque tendemos a hacer lo otro. Te enfocas a lo encantada que estás, lo mucho que te gusta, cómo te prende, cómo te fascina, lo sensacional que te parece. Y toda la parte negativa del fulano, tendemos a no verla, a minimizarla, porque pues obviamente no quieres que se te arruine tu sueño. Entonces, claro que pon atención en las cosas que te dice. Y la pregunta es, ¿por qué quisieras tomar el riesgo de estar en una relación con un hombre que te dice cosas como, es que ¿sabes qué? No estoy seguro de lo que estoy buscando. No estoy seguro que yo me quiera casar. Todavía no tengo claro si quiero tener hijos. Uy. Entonces, claro, 2 años en la relación, tú esperando a que te dé el anillo, y te volteas y le dices, ¿qué onda contigo y conmigo? Y te dice, oye, pero es que yo siempre te dije que yo no sé lo que estoy buscando, que yo no tengo claro si me quiero casar o que quiero tener hijos. Entonces, ¿es probable que no sea así? Es probable. ¿Es posible? Híjole, más bien, ¿es posible? Es posible. ¿Es probable? Es muy probable que esto te suceda. Okay. So we're going to do a commercial break, and when we come back, men who are unemployed, men who have an addiction, men who are disrespectful, men who are too busy for you, men who have communication problems, and men that say they love you, but you ain't seeing shit, baby. Todo eso al regresar con Marc Katz. No se vayan.
Marta de Baile 2022 en W Radio 96.9. Estamos de regreso y estamos donde estés.
Así de fácil, cuentavientes. Hay una lista, según uno de los hombres más capaces en coachar a mujeres que están buscando el amor, es Marc Katz, considerado como el mejor entrenador para encontrar el amor de mujeres inteligentes, fuertes y exitosas, del tipo de hombres que va a ser muy complicado. Ya dijo, hombres que recientemente se separaron, hombres que recientemente se acaban de divorciar, hombres que no saben lo que están buscando. Y bueno, vamos con el cuarto, hombres desempleados. Una cosa es que ames a tu fulano y de repente se quedó sin chamba. Pero empezar de cero con el desempleo. So one thing is you're in love with your husband, you adore your girlfriend, your boyfriend, and then he lost his job. One thing is that, and then the other thing is starting a relationship with a guy that is jobless.
Yeah, and again, I don't want this to ever sound like we lack sympathy. I think as a woman, the central metaphor of Love You is that you're the CEO of your own love life, and men are the interns who are trying out for you. You want to have someone that you think could ultimately run the company, who's going to be a foundational piece. And if a guy is in a really bad place in his life or has a history of not being able to hold down a job or stick in any one place, that doesn't give much confidence that he will. And so too much of love is predicated on trying to change men. I'm sure you could recognize that. Let's just start off with the idea that let's assume that who the guy is right now isn't going to change at all. Let's assume this did. Now, do you think this is a good 40-year bet? And that's why most of these answers are no.
Dice, a ver, no quiero que ustedes crean que somos unos perros y que no tenemos empatía. Pero les voy a decir una cosa. Normalmente uno entra en una relación y parte de la fantasía es que vas a cambiar y mejorar y pulir a la persona. Y eso es un gran error. Cuando uno entra en una relación tiene que imaginarse que lo que hay es lo que va a haber. Y pues alguien que no está empleado y que lleva sobre todo mucho tiempo desempleado, la pregunta es, híjole, ¿esa persona será una buena apuesta para los siguientes 40 años? Imaginemos que las cosas se van a quedar como están hoy. Esa es la pregunta que se tienen que hacer. Okay, men with some type of addiction.
Yeah, I don't know if it requires much elaboration. We could have
I agree.
people with addictions. The problem is the addiction is bigger than you. People always choose their addiction over the people in their life. That's what makes it an addiction.
Of course.
So if you're trying to save someone, and as you pointed out, there's a difference between the partner you're married to lapses into an addiction. You don't just get up and leave them that second. But to take on the baggage of rehabilitating someone, I have a story. Can I tell a story?
Of course you can.
It's a slightly sad, slightly funny story.
Okay.
I had a client who was in my first class of Love You in 2015. She had never found a man who treated her well in her entire life. She's 49 years old. And finally, she has this guy who is doing everything right. Character, kindness, consistency, communication, commitment. Wonderful guy. But he had a kidney problem. And so he had to have one of his kidneys removed. And because his kidneys caused a circulation problem, he had to have the bottom of one of his legs amputated. And because he had one of his legs amputated, he was kind of depressed. And because he was depressed, he had to take antidepressants. And because he took antidepressants, his penis didn't work. He had erectile dysfunction.
Oh my God.
And she's like, Evan, but I've never been treated so well. Didn't you tell me that that's the most important thing, how he treats me? And I remember saying to her, Kathy, I promise you could find a guy with 2 kidneys, 2 legs, and a working dick who treats you well.
Ay, Dios mío santo. Dios de mi vida, that's a tough one. Dice, a ver, les voy a contar una historia. Tenía una clienta que empieza a salir con un cuate y entonces el cuate pues le sale un problema en el riñón y entonces le quitan el riñón, pero entonces también le amputan una pierna, entonces el hombre se deprime, entonces empieza a tomar antidepresivos, entonces por los antidepresivos le da disfunción eréctil y esta mujer estaba vuelta loca porque decía, es que Van, tú siempre me has dicho que lo más importante es encontrar un hombre que te trata bien. Y Evan le tuvo que decir, mi niña, sí puedes encontrar un hombre con 2 piernas, con 2 brazos, con 2 riñones, que le funcione el pene y que te trate muy bien. That's a tough one.
You're amazing at your job, Martha. I don't know how you...
I pay attention to every single word you say. Well, that's a tough call. That's a tough call.
Anyway, one thing I want to inject into this list is that something I didn't have in that little TikTok video. Long distance guys.
Okay. No, so just let me say one more thing you said.
Sure.
Una cosa es estar con alguien que tiene una adicción y otra cosa es empezar una relación con alguien que tiene una adicción. Porque normalmente la gente que tiene una adicción, la adicción es más importante que cualquier persona que los rodea. Entonces las probabilidades de que tú seas totalmente secundario van a ser muy altas. Por eso no es buena idea estar o acercarte o empezar una relación con alguien que tiene una adicción. Punto y se acabó. Y me dice, algo que me faltó en esta lista son las relaciones larga distancia. Really? Like, I had a relationship long distance for 6 years with a guy that lived in D.C. I mean, it ended up not happening, but it was a fun ride.
If your goal is a fun ride, you don't have to listen to any of this. I'm sure The Alcoholic could be a fun ride too.
Agree. So what is your point on long distance relationships? Because you're going to break a lot of women's hearts that are actually right now in a long distance relationship.
I'm going to save a lot of women's hearts.
Okay, say it.
Right. So lots of people invest in long distance relationships. We think love has this transcendent quality that it means reality takes a hike. Here's the problem with a long distance relationship. In the best case scenario, there are 2 huge obstacles that other people don't have. Number 1, your relationship isn't real until you're in the same place. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's just vacation love. Anybody could FaceTime at night and make love in a hotel and call that a relationship and say, this is great. But until you're day to day, you haven't even gotten your relationship started until then.
Okay.
Number 1. Number 2, if everything goes great, someone has to uproot their life and find a different job, maybe move their kids, right? Only to find out that it doesn't work. And I know a person, again, everybody knows stories. My sister got married to a long distance guy. It does happen sometimes, but there are far more stories of someone who picks up after 8 months of talking to a guy on the phone, seeing him 4 times, moves to be with him, and in 1 month they break up.
Yeah.
That is far more common.
The only thing they have to do is see 90 Day Fiancé on TLC. You've seen that show. Entonces le digo, oye, pero a ver, dice, el tema de las relaciones larga distancia. Y le digo, oye, yo estuve en una relación larga distancia 6 años, él vivía en DC, yo vivía acá, y bueno, no acabó funcionando, pero la pasamos bomba. Y me dice, no, bueno, si es de pasarse la bomba, pues hay muchas otras formas, hasta con un adicto se la puede pasar una bomba. Pero estamos hablando de largo plazo. Entonces, las personas que están en una relación de larga distancia tienen 2 problemas fundamentales. 1, hasta que no conviven el día a día, no es una relación real. O sea, es un amor vacacional. Porque cualquiera puede decir que está increíble su relación. Si hablan por la noche en Zoom o en FaceTime, tienen sexo de vez en cuando en un lugar exótico, en un hotel, o inclusive phone sex. Pero hasta que no vivan juntos el día a día, la convivencia real, esa relación no ha comenzado. O sea, no has podido comenzar a ver qué hay. Y segundo, normalmente lo que sucede es que estás 6, 8, 10 meses en el teléfono, se visita el uno, se visita el otro. Siempre uno de los dos tiene que voltear de cabeza su vida, cambiarse de país, buscar un trabajo nuevo, aprender un diferente idioma, mudar a los hijos para estar en el mismo lugar. Y claro que hay relaciones de larga distancia, y yo sé que ustedes, cuentavientes, han tenido algunas exitosísimas que han terminado en matrimonio y en felicidad, pero la gran mayoría, y ese es el gran riesgo, le dan vuelta a su vida, se mudan al país extraño con el fulano o la fulana en cuestión, y corte A los 2 meses se dan cuenta que eso no jala, pero ni con una carreta. Ese es el problema y ese es el gran riesgo, y en una gran mayoría de los casos, ese es el final de muchas relaciones de larga distancia. I love this next point. A guy that disrespects you. And I want your definition of disrespect. Can't hear you.
I don't know that I said disrespect in that video, but it's a good word. I just don't know if it's a word that I actively used.
Like he's not respectful or...
No, I'm not defending disrespectful guys. I just don't know. It doesn't sound like a word that I use.
Uh-huh.
I would probably say more broadly, a guy who doesn't treat you well.
Okay,
like a guy who
great.
says he loves you, but doesn't act like he loves you.
Okay.
And it's very easy to say, baby, I love you. I've never loved anybody this much. You're my soulmate. We have such amazing chemistry. But if there's 100 different ways, including disrespect, right? That seems like a sort of one of many things, including disrespect, then what's the point of a relationship if it's death by 1,000 cuts?
Give me examples.
He's
not faithful. He's rude to you. He's not your biggest fan. He says demeaning things. He's never on time. He doesn't pay attention to you. He's always too busy.
Martha, you're really good at this. It sounds like you've experienced this before.
Well, you're my friend, baby. I've learned a lot. So all these and many more.
Yeah, I think we have to pay more attention to our feelings. There's 2 kinds of feelings. There's the overwhelming feeling of, oh my God, I feel so connected to him, the in love feeling. And then think about every guy you've ever been in love with. Of course. And how badly a lot of those things ended.
No, and actually, you know what? I have been there. And this is a lovely story. So I was dating this guy, and on the second date, he said to me, he looked at me in the eye and said, you know what? You are really beautiful. And then I said, oh my God, thank you. And he said, yeah, but you know what? There's tons of more women more beautiful than you. Excuse me? But you know what I did? Regarding that red flag, I dated the guy for the next 8 months. And obviously, it was a terrible, terrible journey. That's the things women do.
I have so much more to say about that, but I want to keep it moving.
Okay. Dice, a ver, uno no puede estar con un hombre que no te trata bien. Y eso incluye un hombre que no es respetuoso. ¿A qué va, Marc, con esto? Y siempre lo decimos en el programa. El amor no es lo que uno siente. El amor no es lo que uno dice. El amor es lo que uno hace. De nada te sirve un fulano que te diga todo el día, es que te amo, es que nunca he amado a una mujer como tú, es que eres mi diosa, es que sin ti no puedo vivir, es que eres mi reina, cuando no tiene tiempo para ti, te dice cosas horrendas, te hace sentir mal, te hace sentir una imbécil, te falta el respeto, te cela, te controla, te manipula, nunca tiene tiempo, está ocupado, te tira loca. El amor no es lo que uno dice. El amor es lo que uno hace. Y tendemos siempre a pensar y a hacernos bolas entre, pero es que él me dice que me quiere mucho. Es que vale madres lo que te diga. Las acciones hablan mucho más fuerte que las palabras. Y le decía yo que una vez salí con un fulano que en el segundo date me dijo, te digo algo, eres súper guapa. Y yo me sentí súper halagada. Y lo siguiente que me dijo es, pero ojo, hay viejas mucho más guapas que tú, ¿eh? O sea, nunca entendí el mensaje, pero ¿qué hacemos? Eliminamos esas banderas rojas y ¿qué hice? Salí 8 meses con el fulano, 8 meses bastante infernales. Entonces dice, justamente por eso hablo de que si un hombre no te trata bien, no importa qué te diga, no puedes estar ahí. So you were going to say something else?
Yeah, I was going to say that I not that I can control my clients in any way, but I highly discourage any client, because we were finishing up the long distance thing, from even considering a long distance. We basically say, hey, if you can't drive to his house in 40 minutes, you're in a long distance relationship.
Yeah.
So instead of thinking you have to go far away to make something happen because your city is so bad that you need to date in another city, I could promise you the men in every other city are not magical. There's a good guy in your city if you are open to it.
Yeah.
If you open up wide, guess what? You'll find a guy 9 hours away and fall in love with him and have to deal with the consequences.
Of course. Dice, yo desincentivo a todas mis clientas a las relaciones larga distancia. Y para mí larga distancia es, oye, si no puedes manejar a casa de tu novia o tu novio en 40 minutos, eso es larga distancia. Y muchas veces lo haces porque sientes que en donde vives, pues ya no hay hombres. Pero si ustedes hacen su chamba, si ustedes abren su corazón, si ustedes abren su espectro, van a encontrar un buen hombre con muchas menos complicaciones logísticas que un hombre que encuentren a larga distancia, en la mayoría de los casos. Okay, we have one more before you have to go. Men that are really, really bad in communication skills.
So, communication is one of those things where you don't realize how important it is until you don't have it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's unlike some of the other things. It's a thing you can learn to do. Right? One could learn to become a better communicator over time. The problem is most people don't think they need to learn. And this is men and women alike. Let's be fair. But if you have a guy who constantly either has anger issues and yells at you, or constantly slams the door and leaves the room and gives you the silent treatment, right? Or punishes you in some way because you had a disagreement, that's an unhealthy dynamic that really can't healthily sustain for a long time. In relationships, two people need to be problem solvers.
Yeah.
You can't expect to agree with your partner at all times.
Yeah.
But the default is, how are we going to get past this? How could we agree to disagree? How could we lower the temperature? And if you've got a guy where your dynamic is constantly slamming doors, silent treatments, make-up sex, breaking up, making up, that's not a recipe for success.
Yeah. Dice, a ver, yo les quiero decir una cosa. Uno no sabe lo importante que es la comunicación y las habilidades de comunicación hasta que no las tienes. Entonces, si tú eres una de esas parejas que no tiene la habilidad para resolver problemas, porque las parejas exitosas, ambas son muy hábiles, ambos participantes, en la resolución de problemas. Pero si tú eres una de esas parejas que todo es a gritos, sexo de reconciliación, nos peleamos, nos contentamos, nos madreamos, nos amamos, las probabilidades de que esa relación sea exitosa son muy bajas. El aprenderte a comunicar de manera asertiva y eficiente es algo que sí se puede aprender. Y es muy importante que ambos en la pareja estén dispuestos a volverse más hábiles y más efectivos en la forma en que se comunican, sobre todo cuando se trata de resolver broncas. Evan Marc Katz, cuentavientes, ha graduado y tienen que verlo en Instagram porque aparte a veces postea a las exitosas parejas que ha logrado juntar. O sea, mujeres que él coachea porque solo coachea mujeres y que han encontrado el amor. Y entonces él siempre postea fotos de sus clientas graduadas y exitosas. El curso se llama Love You. Y si ustedes entran a evanmarckatz.com, se los pongo ahorita en Twitter, pueden tomar el curso desde donde quiera que estén. Y es un curso para dejar de cometer los mismos errores que cometemos las mujeres, sobre todo las que somos exitosas, autosuficientes, independientes, que juramos que a todos los hombres les damos miedo, que eso es una cosa muy grave, y B, que necesitas un hombre como tú, pero necesitas una mujer como tú, pero en hombre. No, no es así. Y eso les enseña Evan. Es evanmarckatz.com, es Evan Marc Katz en Twitter, en Instagram y en Facebook. My friend, a big kiss all the way to LA. Thank you so much.
Martha, you're very good to me. I'm always glad to be here with you.
Love you, my friend. Talk to you soon.
You too.